Today I have 3 exercises that are going to help to increase hip flexor mobility. Oftentimes when we think about improving our mobility, especially in our hips, we think about stretching and improving our flexibility, which is one of the components to mobility. But oftentimes what is overlooked is strength. And when we improve the strength in our hips, this also helps to improve our hip flexor mobility as well. So we're going to look at 3 exercises that are going to help our mobility by improving the strength in our hip flexors. So let's go ahead and get to the first one. For first exercise, we're going to lay down on our back and bring our feet off the ground, knees right above our hips right here. And we're going to lift our head off the ground. This is going to help to keep that core engaged. And we're going to extend one leg forward all the way. And that's extended leg. I want you to push through it as if we're trying to touch that far wall. Now the bent leg, we're going to pull that knee as close to our head as we can. So this hip flexor is going to be fully engaged and strong. We just hold this for about a second or two. Bring the leg back up, let it relax, and then do the other side. Extend the other leg. Make sure we're really extending, trying to push it to that far wall and pulling this knee using our hip flexor muscles as close to our head as we can. Just hold this for about a second or two and then release. And I like doing this for reps. It's almost like if you think of like you're pulling on the 2 ends of a rope. And this really engages the hip flexor. We got full flexion in the hip with the bent leg. And we also are working some extension in the leg that is straight. And if you want to advance this exercise a little bit more, then you can do both legs at the same time. So we can go ahead and straighten the legs out, get that extension, bring them in, and really pull those knees in. And get a little bit of that core activation as well. That's our first hip flexor exercise. Let's go to number 2. For our second exercise, they're pretty much like mountain climbers, but instead of targeting cardio, we're going to target those hip flexors and really strengthen them in all 3 positions. So we're going to come into a plank position. Just make sure that you're bracing your core real good. We're not sagging here at the hips or anything. We're not too high piked up. Back should be relatively flat. Hands right underneath the shoulders. And essentially we're going to do the same exercise that we did, but we're just going to do it in the inverse. So I'm going to raise one knee all the way up, get that flexion, bring it back, and then do the other side. It's like really slow motion mountain climbers. And just hold that position, get full flexion in the hip, and just hold that position for a second or two, each set being around 10 reps. Now some variations that you can do with this is you can bring your knee to the same side elbow, and then you're working some of that external rotation in your hips as well. Or you can bring it to your kitty corner elbow. That way you're working some of that internal rotation in your hips as well. So nice little routine I like to do with this one. Go into the middle. Go outside to work that external rotation. Go inside to work that internal rotation. And do that for reps. 10 reps per set. For a third exercise, we're going to just take a seat on the ground and have our legs straight out in front of us. On this one, we're going to keep our knees as straight as we can. So we'll keep them locked out. Hands are going to come right next to us, either by our hips. We can even start crawling them closer to our feet. That will increase the difficulty of this exercise. So find your spot where you want to have your hands, keep your back straight, core slightly engaged, and we're just going to lift one leg, 1 foot off the ground, keeping the knee straight. And you're just going to go as high as you can, hold it for about a second or two, set it down, and then raise the other leg. Now this one can be intense. So it could start to give you some hip cramping in that hip flexor. but really great exercise for building that strength, which will help in your mobility gains with your hips. And you just want to get a nice squeeze at the top of your lift. And for a little more intensity, if you have it, you can go ahead and also do both legs at the same time. This will definitely be more intense. Might be something you have to work yourself up to. And again, I like to do this for 10 reps per set, and then try to hold that last rep for 10 seconds if you got it. And again, if you want to increase the difficulty level even more, the closer your hands are to your feet, the more difficult that this exercise will be. That's our third exercise, targeting our hip flexors. Strength, my friend, to help improve your mobility. So if your goal is to improve your hip mobility, don't neglect your hip strengthening exercises. Now that doesn't mean to not do your flexibility, to do your stretches. You gotta do your stretches as well. You need both flexibility and strength, which is gonna help to improve your overall mobility and improve that range of motion in your hips. If you have any questions, leave those down in the comments. Anything you'd like to add in addition, also leave those down in the comments. I always like to keep learning, and it could also help somebody else out when we're sharing our knowledge. Hit the thumbs up button, make sure you're subscribed here to Marshall Flex, and we'll see you next time.